Welcome to the special simulcast, the Neil Haley Show on the Storehouse Media Group podcast. We're the host, Sherry Price Clark of Storehouse Media. How are you, Sherry? I know you're excited about our guest today.
Hi, Neil. Yes, I am really excited because I think her topic is super interesting. And I want to welcome Jena Jake. And Jena Jake is a compatibility strategist.
That's
And what she does is what I'm understanding, and I know she's probably going to change it, but what I understand is that she's your strategist for love. Not that she has the perfect mate, but she helps you create the strategy to find them, right? So, welcome, Jena.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, yeah. So, what I was speaking of is that you help design the partner you're most compatible with, and then you create the strategy to find them. You're not a dating service, you're not a matchmaker.
No.
You are a compatibility strategist, as well as that can feed over into business as well, out of personal into professional.
Yes, and then I'm a retired therapist and certified coach, and so I use those tools in the background of what I'm doing. But my goal is to help you become more self-aware and either figure out who your perfect love avatar is, so you're not guessing when you're meeting people. You know exactly what it is you're looking for. And then also for couples, I do this too, people that are getting married. So you want to know the marriage before you hit the wedding. So you know exactly who you're with. So because a lot of people are married to the version of the person that they think that they want, that's through their lens, their wounds, and the person that they're with is a completely other person in their mind because they have a whole other experience going on. And it's good for marriages too that are have been intact or are falling apart because it eases up a lot of misunderstandings about people.
Yeah, and those misunderstandings. So, what do you think is the perfect match for a couple?
Oh wow. I have a ABA formula, and ABA is big in autism. Also an autism mom, so it'll ring true with a lot of this. ABA is very familiar, but it's a different kind of ABA. It's basically people that are self-aware, which is compatibility is built. It's not, you're not finding someone and now you're compatible. So you have to be self-aware and love yourself enough to become self-aware. And then you have boundaries, which people have a lot of issues with that. And so when you're self-aware and you have boundaries, now you have alignment and anything else just isn't going to go. So it's not compatibility is basically what's aligned and not what's comfortable for you. Just to have somebody. It's not availability, it's compatibility.
And what is that compatibility look at? What are the markers of that?
What are you asking me? When you have someone that's compatible with you?
Yes, yes, yes. And
Well,
it looks works good because relationships at one point in time change in so many ways based on their dynamics, what they brought to the table before, all these different aspects. How do you see that? How do you define that compatibility?
Well, when you go through the process with me, you have a survey that we do that's your own personality. And so I'm able to say, this is who you are. This is what you value. This is how you're going to behave or likely to behave in specific situations, what your tendencies might be. And then I have subscales that I look at, like how empathetic is this person? How competitive are they? So we have a pretty good idea of who each person is. And then I could say, okay, this is how they're likely to behave in this situation. This is what you're getting. So if you're married to somebody that has no empathy and you have a lot of empathy, well, don't expect them to be the person whose shoulder you're going to cry on. If you have a parent that gets Alzheimer's or you're going through some sort of personal crisis that they can't relate to, they're not going to be that person for you. So don't expect that. So then they get to decide, okay, is this something I want to live with or not? And then that's their decision. But at least now they know who they're with and what to expect. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Interesting.
And I think you're right with the frustration that people get into relationships again with their own lands and wounds, and that's something we'll talk about later. But they're into this relationship and they have these expectations, and it could be based on their lands or their wounds, and the person doesn't meet those expectations, and it just causes all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
in a relationship when that happens. So, from my understanding, what you're doing is it's about self awareness. You have to start from yourself. And I remember hearing someone say, if you're only half a person, you're going to attract half a person.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to be whole within yourself in order to attract a whole person. You've got to start with yourself.
Right.
And people come with wounds and everything, and it just can kind of blow things up.
100%. I mean, the love comes from within each of us because when we see a baby or a puppy, we feel this love, we get excited, we generate that, and the puppy and the baby didn't do anything except be. But then we expect our partners to fulfill all these roles that they're not really ready and sometimes not even available to do, and we sort of put that on them and then put all of our love and power, and we think, oh, I'm in love because of you, but it's really them that's generating it. And to take their power back and to be a whole person, like, and then attract that, because you're only going to attract, like you said, someone as healthy as you are, because relationships are all mirrors.
And that's why when you look at a relationship, you look at what you're bringing to the table at that time in that place. How broken are you? What other things are you bringing to the table, and growth and development? And that's why some couples grow apart, is because
Mhm.
one is growing while the other one never grew.
Exactly. I just heard a quote that said, "What you attract when you're broken will disgust you when you're healthy." To put it
Ooh,
in a really crass way of what you just said. Yes, exactly. So,
But that process takes almost the rest of their lives to
if
really
ever.
not to get to heal to that point.
yeah, but that's what I like about what I do because at least you know that I could say, okay, well, don't try to expect this from this person because they're not going to be the one. So if you know, okay, I'm with my partner and they're not empathetic and I'm very empathetic, and I know I should go to my family to have someone's shoulder to cry on, I'm not going to expect that from them. And then maybe we're not going to fight about that because now I know who I'm with and I accept them for who they are instead of having that resentment build.
Interesting. Do you see
Yes.
couples grow together where
Oh,
they
yeah.
grow into their own space, and it's sometimes circumstance that gets them to that point?
I think so. I think people that are really having a space to be married and know how to be married and aren't afraid of that because they're good with themselves, they have a lot of interdependency, not codependency or independency, but they can be alone and together at the same time because they're not depending on the person for everything. It's just I'm whole, you're whole, and we're going to be a whole together, like two wholes.
Hmm.
Yeah, not this, you complete me.
No, no, no. And
Yeah,
our society is just, ugh, all of that needs to go away because it's
yeah,
wrong and it's misleading.
And
And
it could break you. It could break you so fast into a going spiraling out of control.
yes, and then people say, what happens when they go away? Then you've given all your power over to somebody and now they're gone. Now what? Now what are you going to do?
yeah, yeah. That's true. And you do these surveys on them to determine what kind of person they are. Do you think some of them may like not be completely truthful, that they're trying to make themselves better, different
Now,
than what they are?
yeah, the survey has a little, they have a gaming kind of thing in there ready to have people to not do that. So they ask a lot of the same questions in different ways to make sure you're not trying to
Okay.
game the system.
Okay. Because I could just imagine some people they want to make themselves look really good, or like, if I don't
Yeah.
commit to that kind of a thing.
Yeah, they thought
Yeah.
about that when they made it.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So you use this also outside of relationships in business. Explain how you do that for business people.
Well, I've used this when I had another business in healthcare, and I was using it um, for leadership development and then helping people also with their relationships at home. So I was using this for healthcare leaders, but I much prefer to do the relationship things because even when I was doing the leadership development, I was always wondering what's going on at home and how's your marriage and what do your kids think of you? Like that's all I ever really wanted to know.
And it makes
Well,
sense.
Yeah,
Totally makes
so much
sense.
more interesting to me.
Oh yeah, I agree. And ultimately, the way you're talking about things, a lot of relationship experts don't talk about this. They don't talk about really looking at the core quickly instead of so you don't run into this whole figure out process.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because you don't want to, because people start to see the red flags and then ignore them because they don't want to be alone. Where before you get too attached, let's look to see. Because when I got married, I would have loved to have known how my ex-husband's empathy was not existent and how he didn't speak nicely to people. That's just how he's wired. And I speak very nicely to people and I'm super empathetic. And now I know the next round, well, hopefully my partner will be happy to be assessed because it's good for them to know who they're really with. And I definitely would not want to make that mistake again, but now I'm not going to be guessing.
Totally.
That's so
That
good too, because a lot of people do. And like you said lens and you said wounds, and
Hmm.
they do walk into that relationship and you don't want to tell anybody those things at the beginning. I mean, they're definitely, you're afraid they're going to be the deal breakers in the whole matter. And they really do need to look at themselves. And I think as getting themselves assessed would be, I would love to be assessed. I mean, to determine who you are. And does it like show you weaknesses and strengths and all of that?
It shows you, we always like to think of it as strengths that can be overused because any tendency or can be something that works for you or against you. For example, I'm super neurotic. So I'm on one end of the scale that I might come off as neurotic, worry wart, but at the same time, in a COVID situation, I would say, okay, COVID's coming back. I'm going to be the first one to get toilet paper before someone who's much higher adjusted, like, but an airline pilot or a doctor or a surgeon, you want them to be very calm, very collected. So the thing that makes them a rock star in the hospital works against them at home when they don't think that something's a problem and other people might feel it's a problem. Oh, you're hysterical. It creates sort of a disconnect at home. So it's a strength that becomes overused and then it now works against you, which is how marriages have misunderstandings. So I might think he's not caring, but he's just wired to be calm because he's a good surgeon. But he does care. But to me, because I'm very, I would say I have a good ear to the ground. I realize things. I'm like saying there's a problem. I feel like he doesn't care. So we have this huge misunderstanding that's now gone on for 30 years. When like I could explain that to somebody and it's a different narrative now in your relationship.
it totally is. You don't know what to expect.
No, and then somebody that you think, like I thought my ex-husband was more empathetic than he was because he's very altruistic. Completely different. You like to help people, but you don't care that, my car broke down and now I have to walk 3 miles to work or whatever it is. That kind of thing. Well, there's no rest for the weary. Let's get going, but you like to help people. That's completely different. So you think somebody's one way, and then you realize that they're not, but you wouldn't know that unless you saw that on paper with a survey like this.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so interesting,
Very
Jana.
deceiving, very deceiving.
Wow. Yeah, it's really interesting. As you're talking, I'm like going back in my mind on some things. It's like, that would have probably been a good time to have done that assessment.
Yeah. Before you get too attached, like, no, take a look under the hood. Make sure that you have alignment and not convenience.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And where do you see that there are that this really could work out? This could be something that is developing the right direction, even if they're not opposites attract. They really don't have certain things in common, but yet they fit exactly where they need to be. Kind of explain that. Is that possible, or was that the mistake people make?
No, I mean, there's probably a lot of values that they share, but there might be some tendencies that are off. So, like, even in my own relationship, my ex-husband and I had a lot of shared values, so it made us a good couple. But then also, I think there's a lot of pathology that plays into it that maybe not assessment may not see, but like you have similar wounds. You may see life the same. You might have similar backgrounds, those kinds of things. But that's not what keeps marriages alive. What keeps marriages alive is having a positive overall sentiment about each other. And so when you have people that are blaming each other or critical of each other. You know, there's one thing to complain about a situation, and then there's character assassination. So those are the things I try to tear marriages down, which I do a whole speech about when I have these blueprints that I create. And I have a whole side thing about that, aside from the personality, but like these are the things you have to watch out for. And they can be more prevalent in certain personalities than others.
Mm-hmm.
And people, so somebody like me who's higher in interpersonal sensitivity and likes to be spoken to nicely, if I'm with someone who's just shoots from the hip, they may think they're being honest, but I may get offended by that. So that's when I'm going to feel like it's character assassination, and my sentiment over time is going to erode. And that's how the marriage is going to start to break down, or the relationship, whatever it is.
Hmm. That is so interesting, and then as you get to know somebody and you start seeing these patterns that you didn't know, then you got to decide if it's a deal breaker or not. But
Yeah,
hopefully you find that
that.
out before.
Yeah, like now I'm not guessing and I'm going to see, oh, your interpersonal sensitivity is like 50 or lower. See ya. You have no empathy. Bye-bye. You know, those kinds of things. Like I have a whole list of things that if I see, we're good. See ya. Because I'm not settling again. I'm not making that mistake. Now I so much know better.
Wow. Yeah, I guess you do.
Yeah.
Being in that area of
Yeah, I created an avatar for myself. So I have exact person's personality that I would be looking for within a range, but and then from that avatar I created a relationship blueprint, what our relationship would look like, how that person would like to be spoken to, all those kinds of things. So I use it as samples for my clients.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And so who are the best candidates for you right now?
I think, I wish younger people that are getting married for the first time would like this, but they don't get it. But I think people that are either been married and divorced and have already felt the trauma of that, felt the financial impact, seen the impact that it had on the children, and are looking to get back into the game, either looking for a love avatar or have somebody that they want to marry and to put them through the assessment and do the work before they commit. Those are the people I think benefit the most because they've already, been to the dance or pulled the curtain and seen the wizard, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what is it? Once burned, shame on you, twice burned, shame on me.
Yeah,
Kind
exactly.
of, yeah,
Because that's what
yeah.
people do. They tend to just, find the same person in another dress or pants, and then the statistics for a second divorce are even higher than a first one.
People do have a type, don't they?
Yeah.
Normally.
Well, because compatibility is what's familiar, people, or chemistry rather, is what's familiar to you. So you're just going to like that because that's what's familiar, but that's wounds. That's a pattern. That's not passion.
Huh. Wow. Didn't know this stuff. Did you, Neil?
No, I mean, I think there's so much more to it. And the problem is that people that go into the dating world are expecting it to be perfect when it's not going to be.
No.
Or they're going to be too picky. What are you about? What are your thoughts on people that are too picky?
I think you have to accept that you're not perfect and neither is somebody else, but the good outweighs the bad. So I think being too picky is sort of a sneaky way of expressing fear of rejection, um, fear of not being loved, whatever it is, because there's definitely somebody for everybody, but it's hard and it depends on the age group too. I mean, people over a certain age, especially women, they find it hard because it's not as easy to actually find somebody. But I think you should have standards, but being too picky and rejecting everybody, I think is fear.
Yeah, it totally is.
And what do you think about people who do go back into the dating world after being married? Do you think they have a tendency to fill in holes that their ex had? Like, well, he didn't do this or he didn't do that, and then they meet somebody and they're opposite of what they are. They think so in their mind until they find out that there is a type and they really are opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the holes were just I don't know. They really aren't a big deal in the whole big scheme of things, that there is that compatibility issue.
Yeah. If you didn't do your work between getting divorced and getting back on the horse, you're just going to repeat the same pattern because the
Over and over and
parents,
again. Yeah, they're
they're
going
so strong. They're so strong, like look at some of these celebrities that have been married three, four, five times, and then divorced over and over again. There's a pattern going on there.
They did not take your test, your assessment.
No, they didn't come to see me. And
I know.
what that must cost, I don't want to pick on like Jennifer Lopez, but I can only imagine what these divorces must cost or over and
Wow.
over again. And even the impact that it has on the kids too. It's got to be an emotional impact.
Yeah, there is that lack of what do you call it? Foundation.
Yes.
Consistent.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's, one minute she was with A-Rod and then the next minute she was with Ben. And I mean, that had to be confusing for two kids.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
I don't know what happened, but I love Jennifer Lopez, no hate, but I'm just saying that there's definitely some kind of pattern going on there.
right.
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
unconscious, and so this is the things we got to bring out so we don't keep repeating the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, where's the best place people can find information on you? I think this is great information and more people need to know about it.
JenaJake.com, JenaJake.com.
All right. We appreciate it. And go to storehousemediagroup.com for all things podcasting, publishing, and marketing. Appreciate it, guys. That was the special simulcast, the Neil Haley Show, and the Storehouse Media Group podcast, guys. Take care.